So a president who said he was coming to curb wastages, who said he was coming to renew hope. I can catalog all this. Bought a yacht, bought a Cadillac, bought an aircraft, increased the money of the National Assembly, and I've borrowed like no other president in history. If you are making more money, then why are you borrowing?
Well, to
the extent that the Speaker of the House of Representatives today,
I read it. He was
is also concerned, despite he's a member of the APC.
I read that he was talking about
and
how
we will not be surprised if the president starts borrowing from OPE and money points very soon.
In Nigeria, recent available data indicate that our debt trajectory has reached a critical point, showing that, like many African countries, we continue to borrow internally and externally to fund capital and sometimes non-capital projects.
In 2024, we borrowed a lot more. We took World Bank loans. We raised 5.7 trillion naira in the local market. We also took a Eurobond. So those as we borrow more, debt service grows. Okay, so that's, and then the second thing is that interest rates now are much higher. So we used to borrow locally when we issue sukuk, maybe at 15, 16%. Now rates are over 20% because of monetary policy action. So those are the reasons for the higher figures. Because as we borrow, it adds on to the stock and you have to service it. And as the DMO likes to say, when we borrow, we create an obligation. It's not a grant. When it's a grant, it is take it and you don't have to repay.
We're owing over 7 billion backlog. So it was actually a subsidy regime. FS subsidy regime was what we had. We had borrowed billions of dollars against our reserve. We're not even sure what the net was going to be. So the economy was collapsing. We didn't have the headroom to continue with that. I believe that if we had sustained that regime, we would be in a worse situation today than we are now. If we had sustained it, the government was spending about 96% of their revenue just to service debt, and they were printing money to do everything else. When you keep printing money, the impact will be more devastating than what we have now.
Nigeria is suffocating under mountain debts. From the streets of Lagos where fuel prices keeps climbing, to the villages in the north where hospitals lack basic drugs, to the classrooms around the country where children sit on bare floors with no textbook. One question echoes louder than ever. Why is Nigeria borrowing so much, and where is the money going to? In just 2 years, President Bola Tinubu has overseen the most aggressive borrowing spree in Nigeria's democratic history, depending on which figure you trust. Between 55 trillion naira and 96 trillion naira has been added to Nigerian debt stock. To put it simply, what Muhammadu Buhari achieved in 8 years of heavy borrowing, President Bola Tinubu has nearly matched it in just 24 months. This is not just about the economy. This is about survival. And this is about whether Nigeria can still breathe under the heavy weight of these debts. So in this video, we ask the uncomfortable question: is Tinubu mortgaging Nigeria's future just to survive as president? It began quietly, stalked into budget document, hidden behind technocrat language about deficit and financing gaps. But when the numbers finally came out, Nigerians gasped. The Debt Management Office reported that as of early 2024, Nigeria public debt had already crossed 97 trillion naira, and by mid-2025, projections suggested it could go beyond 100 trillion naira, a level no one thought possible so soon. Now at this point, let's break it down. When Tinubu came to power in May of 2023, Nigerians' debt stood around 46 trillion naira, already swollen by Buhari's years of borrowing. But instead of slowing down, Tinubu stepped on the accelerator. In just 2 fiscal years, additional borrowing for budget deficits, foreign loans, ways and means from the central bank, and restructuring of the debts pushed the figures into historical highs. The irony, the government still sells it as reforms. They say borrowing is necessary to fund infrastructure and stabilize the Naira. But to ordinary Nigeria, the reality feels different. No new hospital, no functional refineries, power supply still epileptic, food prices hitting the skies. So where is this borrowed money going? Because if you stand at Ojuelegba Bridge in Lagos and ask the street traders struggling to afford garri, if you visit the mechanics in Aba who cannot buy spare parts because the Naira keeps crashing, or the farmers in Benue who cannot take produce to market because roads are impassable, they will tell you the same thing. They can't feel the trillions. This is the new borrowing tsunami. Unlike past government that borrowed gradually, Tinubu's administration has gone full throttle, piling up obligations at pace never seen before. The danger, once debt grows faster than the economy, collapse is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. When Buhari took over power in 2015, Nigeria's total public debt was around 12 trillion naira. He had campaigned as a frugal leader, a man who would fight corruption, cut waste, and build a linear government. But by the time Buhari left in 2023, the debt has risen to about 46 trillion naira. That was an increase of nearly 33 trillion naira in just 8 years. Nigerians groaned under the weight of this debt. Analysts warned that the government was becoming addicted to borrowing. Yet, in hindsight, Buhari's borrowing looks almost modest compared to what was about to come. Now enters Tinubu. In less than 2 years, Tinubu has almost doubled what Buhari took almost 8 years to accumulate. Some estimates suggest that by 2025, Nigerian debt stock could surpass 200 trillion naira. Put differently, Buhari built the staircase, but Tinubu turned it into an accelerator, a fast-growing one with no brakes. The contract is chilling. Buhari was accused of recklessness, but Tinubu has gone further, faster and heavier. Why does this matter? Because debt is not just numbers in government ledger. It is a chain around the ankles of every citizen. And when one president doubles down on what another started, the chain only grows heavier. For Nigerians, these rises are haunting questions. If Buhari's borrowing felt unbearable, what will Tinubu's acceleration feel like in the next 4 years or maybe 8 years? Government officials also always have their justifications. They say, we borrow because we have a revenue problem. They argue, without borrowing, Nigeria cannot fund its budget. They promise the loans will build roads, schools and power plants. But where are these roads? Where are these schools? And where is the electricity that trillions of naira were supposed to generate? Ordinary Nigerians look around and see nothing. No functional refineries, no stable power grid, no transformation in agriculture. Instead, they see government convoys growing longer, ministers flying first class, lawmakers approving billions for luxurious SUVs, and the endless political patronage. This is why many believe that the borrowing is not about building for the people. It is about sustaining a bloated government elite. And even when infrastructure is mentioned, most projects are half completed, over budgeted, or riddled with corruption. The justifications, therefore, begins to show hollow. The truth, borrowing has become a crunch, not to build the future, but to survive the present. Tinubu's team calls it necessary reforms. Critics call it economic gambling with borrowed money. The irony is that Nigeria's debt is rising, but so is poverty. Trillions are borrowed, yet hunger deepens. And as the justification keeps flowing, so do the loans. Debt is not free. Every loan comes with a cost, and that cost is paid by citizens, not politicians. Already, over 90% of Nigeria's revenue is spent on debt servicing. That means for every 100 naira the government earns, more than 90 naira goes straight into repaying old debts. What does that leave for schools, for hospitals, for jobs? Almost nothing. This is why Nigerian classrooms remain overcrowded, why public hospitals run out of basic drugs, why unemployment keeps rising. The consequences of this borrowing spree are everywhere. The Naira weakens, Further, because investors fear Nigeria cannot manage its debts. Inflation worsens because borrowing fuels more money printing and deficits. Tax increase because government desperately look for new ways to raise revenue. And in the end, it is the ordinary Nigerian who pays the price. The market woman in Kano, the teacher in Abakaliki, and the civil servants in Abuja, they are the ones who carry the burden. They pay it through their higher cost of living, weaker salaries, and a future where opportunities shrink instead of grow. These borrowings may look like free money today, but tomorrow it becomes a chain. No president in Nigeria's democratic history has borrowed this recklessly, this fast and this massively. Buhari set a troubling precedent, but Tinubu has turned it into a dangerous record. Nigeria is now trapped in a circle: borrow to survive, spend to maintain government, borrow again to repay old debts. This is not sustainable. Economies once debt servicing swallows all revenue, a country risks collapse, and Nigeria is alarmingly close to that. Tinubu's borrowing spree is not just a financial policy, it is a gamble with a future that could determine whether Nigeria remains stable or falls into deeper crisis. So the question is simple, yet terrifying: how long before the country reaches breaking point? Because when a nation borrows faster than it produces, the crash is not a matter of if, it is only a matter of when. This story is not just about Tinubu, it is about Nigerian survival. It is about the children yet unborn who will inherit mountains of debt they never agreed to. It is about the future generations whose opportunities will be strangled by the decision of today. In just 2 years, Tinubu has set a record, not of building wealth, but of accelerating dependence. And unless something changes, the bill will come due. And when it does, it won't be Tinubu or the political elite who pay. It will be the ordinary Nigerian already struggling to survive. The borrowing spree is not just an economic issue, it is the question of justice, of responsibility, of whether Nigeria can still breathe under the weight of debts. So, we end where we began, with one haunting question: is Tinubu mortgaging Nigerians' future just to survive the present?